Most people think success is about talent, or luck, or timing. But the truth? It's about endurance. Because talent fades, luck runs out, timing shifts. But endurance, the ability to keep moving when everyone else stops, that's what separates winners from the crowd. And here's the uncomfortable part. Endurance doesn't look glamorous. It doesn't look inspiring. It doesn't even look exciting. It looks boring, predictable, relentless. And today, you're going to learn how to build that kind of discipline. But before we dive in, do this real quick. Hit subscribe, smash that like button, and in the comments, write the one excuse you keep repeating to yourself. Not for the algorithm, but because saying it out loud changes how your brain treats it. All right, let's begin. Chapter 1. The Myth of Balance. People love the word balance. It sounds wise. It sounds responsible. It sounds like the kind of thing successful people must have figured out. But the truth? Most of the time when someone says balance, what they really mean is permission to quit. Think about it. How many times have you heard someone say, "You need balance"? Don't overdo it. Life is about moderation. It sounds supportive. It sounds caring. But underneath those words is a hidden message. Slow down. Stop making me uncomfortable with your consistency. Because balance is often used as a shield against effort, a shield against discomfort, a shield against the truth that discipline requires sacrifice. Balance versus excuses. Let's break it down. Balance in its purest form is about stability. It's about not tipping too far in one direction. It's about keeping things steady. But when most people talk about balance, they're not talking about stability. They're talking about excuses. I need balance becomes, I don't want to push today. I need balance becomes, I'll skip this workout. I need balance becomes, I'll restart later. And here's the dangerous part. Every time you use balance as an excuse, you reinforce the identity of someone who negotiates. The negotiation trap. Your brain loves negotiation. It loves finding loopholes. It loves convincing you that comfort is more important than progress. So when you say balance, your brain hears permission granted, permission to skip, permission to delay, permission to quit quietly. And once that pattern starts, it doesn't stop. Because negotiation is addictive. One skipped day feels harmless, but it rewires your identity. It tells your brain, I'm the type of person who skips. And identity is everything. The illusion of balance. Here's the uncomfortable truth. Balance doesn't come before discipline. It comes after. You don't earn balance by quitting early. You earn balance by building consistency so strong that it can survive interruptions. Most people want balance as a shortcut. They want to feel safe while avoiding effort. But real balance is built on a foundation of discipline. Think of it like a scale. If one side is empty, the scale tips. If both sides are filled evenly, the scale stabilizes. Discipline fills the scale. Excuses empty it. Why balance feels comfortable? Balance feels good because it removes guilt. It lets you say, I'm not quitting, I'm just being balanced. It's a clever trick. It disguises quitting as wisdom. It disguises laziness as self-care. And people around you will support it. They'll say, you're right, you need balance. Don't push too hard. Take it easy. But they're not protecting you. They're protecting themselves. Because your consistency exposes their inconsistency. And instead of confronting their own excuses, they encourage yours. The cost of balance. The cost of balance isn't obvious at first. It doesn't feel like quitting. It feels reasonable.
But here's what happens. You skip one day. You tell yourself it's balance. You skip another. You tell yourself it's moderation. You skip again. And suddenly the habit is gone. Not with drama, not with collapse, but with silence. That's how momentum dies. Not because you failed, but because you negotiated. The truth about balance. Here's the truth nobody wants to admit. Balance is not the starting point, it's the reward. You don't start with balance. You start with discipline. You start with repetition. You start with boring, relentless discipline. And once discipline becomes identity, balance becomes possible. Because then you can miss a day without losing momentum. You can take a break without collapsing. You can adapt without quitting. But until discipline is identity, balance is just an exit door. The runner. Let me tell you a story. There was a runner, we'll call her Sarah. She wanted to run every morning. Day 1, she was excited. Day 2, she was motivated. Day 3, she was tired. So she told herself, I need balance. She skipped one day, then another, then another. And within 2 weeks, the habit was gone. But here's the twist. Sarah wasn't lazy. She wasn't weak. She was negotiating. She thought balance was wisdom, but balance was just an excuse. The alternative. Now imagine if Sarah had said, no balance until discipline is identity. She would have run every day. Not perfectly, not intensely, but consistently. And after a month, running wouldn't feel like effort. It would feel automatic. At that point, balance would be possible. Because missing one day wouldn't erase the identity. It wouldn't collapse the habit. It wouldn't destroy the momentum. But she never reached that point because she used balance as an exit door. Why this matters? This matters because most people quit quietly. They don't announce it. They don't admit it. They disguise it. They say, I'm just being balanced. I'm just taking care of myself. I'm just being realistic. But underneath those words is the truth. They're quitting. And quitting disguised as balance is still quitting. The challenge. So here's the challenge. Stop using balance as an excuse. Stop negotiating with yourself. Stop disguising quitting as wisdom. Because balance without discipline is chaos. And discipline without balance is endurance. You don't need balance right now. You need consistency. You need repetition. You need boring, relentless discipline. Balance will come later, but only if you earn it. Chapter 2. The cost of quitting. Most people think quitting is harmless. They think it's just a pause, a reset, a chance to start fresh. But quitting is never neutral. Quitting is expensive, and the price you pay isn't obvious at first. Because quitting doesn't just stop progress. It rewires identity. It erodes trust. It teaches your brain something dangerous. I don't keep promises to myself. The silent damage. Here's the uncomfortable truth. Every time you quit, you don't just lose momentum. You lose credibility with yourself. Think about it. If a friend promised to show up every day and they didn't, how long before you stopped trusting them? How long before you stopped believing their words? Your brain works the same way. Every time you say, I'll do it tomorrow, and tomorrow never comes, your brain learns my promises are fake. And once your brain stops believing you, discipline becomes impossible. The identity shift. Identity isn't built on what you say. It's built on what you repeat. So when you quit, you don't just stop the habit. You become the type of person who quits. That identity is sticky. It clings to you. It shapes your decisions. Because your brain doesn't measure effort. It measures consistency. You can go all out one day and do nothing the next, and your brain learns nothing. But you can do something small every single day, and your brain rewires itself around that behavior. That's why quitting is so dangerous. It doesn't just erase progress, it rewires identity, the trust problem. Here's something most people never think about. Discipline is built on trust, not trust in others, trust in yourself. When you say, "I'll wake up at 6," and you do, you build trust. When you say, "I'll train today," and you do, you build trust. When you say, "I'll write 1 page," and you do, you build trust. That trust compounds. It becomes confidence. It becomes identity. But when you quit, you break trust. And broken trust doesn't heal quickly, because your brain remembers. It remembers the skipped days. It remembers the broken promises. It remembers the exits you took. And the next time you try to commit, your brain whispers, "Why should I believe you?" The hidden weight. Quitting doesn't just stop progress. It makes restarting heavier. Think about it. Day 1 of a new habit feels light. You're excited. You're motivated. You're ready. But day 1 after quitting, it feels heavy. Because now you're carrying doubt. You're carrying guilt. You're carrying the memory of failure. That's why restarting feels harder than starting. Because you're not just building a habit. You're fighting your own history. Story. The writer.
Let me tell you a story. There was a writer, we'll call him James. He wanted to write a book. Day 1, he wrote 10 pages. Day 2, he wrote 5. Day 3, he wrote 2. Then he skipped a day, then another, and suddenly the habit was gone. But here's the twist. James didn't just lose progress, he lost trust. Every time he tried to restart, his brain whispered, "You've quit before, you'll quit again." And that whisper was heavier than the writing itself. That's the cost of quitting. It doesn't just stop the habit, it makes restarting harder. The illusion of fresh starts. Most people love fresh starts. New year, new month, new Monday. They think starting fresh erases the past. It doesn't, because your brain remembers. It remembers the exits. It remembers the negotiations. It remembers the times you said, "I'll start tomorrow," and didn't. Fresh starts feel good emotionally, but they're heavy psychologically, because every restart carries the weight of every quit. Why quitting feels safe. Quitting feels safe because it removes discomfort. It lets you escape effort. It lets you avoid pain. But here's the paradox. Quitting doesn't remove pain, it delays it. And delayed pain compounds. Because when you quit, you don't just avoid effort, you avoid progress, you avoid identity, you avoid trust. And the longer you avoid, the heavier the restart becomes. The compounding effect. Here's the dangerous part. Quitting compounds. 1 quit becomes 2. 2 becomes a pattern. A pattern becomes identity. And suddenly, quitting feels normal. It feels natural. It feels automatic. That's why most people live in cycles. Start, quit, restart, quit, restart, quit. They think they're disciplined because they keep restarting, but restarting isn't discipline. Restarting is proof of quitting. The alternative. So what's the alternative? Don't quit. Not perfectly, not intensely, not dramatically. Just don't quit. On bad days, don't aim for intensity. Aim for presence. 1 push-up, 1 page, 1 minute. Not because it matters physically, but because it matters mentally. Because every small action tells your brain, "I'm still this person." And that message keeps habits alive when motivation dies. The real enemy. The real enemy isn't failure. It's gaps. That tiny pause between actions. The missed day. The "I'll do it tomorrow." Gaps don't look like quitting. They look reasonable. But gaps compound silently. They erode identity quietly. They destroy trust invisibly. That's why the strongest people don't avoid failure. They avoid gaps. Because failure is loud. It teaches lessons. It builds resilience. But gaps are silent. They kill momentum without warning. Chapter 3. The Power of Predictability. Most people think strength comes from intensity. They think the strongest people are the ones who push the hardest, sweat the most, grind the longest. But intensity is fragile. It burns bright, it burns fast, and then it burns out. The real strength, it comes from predictability. Because predictability doesn't burn out. Predictability doesn't collapse. Predictability doesn't negotiate. Predictability is boring. Predictability is relentless. Predictability is terrifyingly effective. Why predictability beats intensity? Intensity feels powerful. It feels dramatic. It feels like progress. But intensity depends on emotion, and emotion is unstable. Predictability doesn't depend on emotion. It depends on repetition. It depends on identity. It depends on removing negotiation. That's why the strongest people aren't intense. They're predictable. They wake up at the same time. They train at the same time. They work at the same time. They repeat the same actions, not because it's exciting, but because it's final. The decision drain. Here's something most people don't realize. Decision-making drains energy. Every time you ask yourself, should I do it now or later, you burn mental fuel. Every time you debate morning or night, you burn mental fuel. Every time you negotiate today or tomorrow, you burn mental fuel. And eventually, the fuel runs out. Not because the habit is hard, but because the decisions are exhausting. That's why most people quit. Not because they can't do the habit, but because they can't survive the decisions. Predictability eliminates decisions. Same time, same place, same action. No debate, no negotiation, no drain. The neuroscience of repetition. Your brain loves patterns. It loves predictability. It loves repetition. Because repetition rewires the nervous system. It turns effort into automation. It turns discipline into identity. At first, repetition feels hard. It feels boring. It feels like nothing is happening. But after enough cycles, repetition feels automatic. Your body starts moving before your brain argues. Your identity starts acting before your emotions interfere. That's why predictability is powerful. It doesn't just build habits, it rewires identity. Story. The athlete. Let me tell you a story. There was an athlete, we'll call him Marcus. He wasn't the fastest, he wasn't the strongest, he wasn't the most talented, but he was predictable. Every morning, 6 a.m., he trained. Same drills, same order, same duration. People laughed. They said, that's boring, that's obsessive, that's not balance. But while everyone else was debating when to train, Marcus was already training. While everyone else was negotiating with themselves, Marcus was already moving. While everyone else was chasing intensity, Marcus was building predictability. And after a year, Marcus wasn't just consistent, he was unstoppable. Not because he was talented, but because he was predictable. Why predictability feels weak. Predictability doesn't feel powerful. It feels boring. It feels repetitive. It feels like nothing is happening. That's why most people avoid it. They want excitement. They want intensity. They want drama. But drama collapses. Excitement fades. Intensity burns out. Predictability survives. Predictability compounds. Predictability rewires identity. The loophole problem. Here's the dangerous part. Variety creates loopholes. Most people think variety keeps things interesting. It doesn't. It creates decision points, and decision points are where discipline dies. Because when you have options, your brain negotiates. Maybe I'll do cardio today. Maybe I'll take an active rest. Maybe I'll skip just once. And suddenly, the habit collapses. That's why predictability matters. Same action, same order, same duration. No loopholes, no negotiation, no collapse. The boredom barrier. Predictability feels boring at first. It feels repetitive. It feels like nothing is happening. But boredom is the barrier between effort and identity. Because boredom removes emotion, and emotion is what ruins consistency. When you push through boredom, something strange happens. The voice gets quieter. The resistance fades. The habit starts running itself. That's when predictability becomes identity. The compounding effect. Predictability compounds quietly. It doesn't feel dramatic. It doesn't feel exciting. It doesn't feel impressive. But every repetition stacks. Every cycle rewires. Every boring action builds identity. And after enough cycles, predictability becomes unstoppable. Because once discipline becomes identity, effort disappears. You don't ask if you'll do the work. You just do it. Not because you're motivated, not because you're excited, but because that's who you are now. Predictability doesn't look strong. It looks boring. It looks repetitive. It looks ordinary. But ordinary done every single day becomes extraordinary. Because predictability doesn't negotiate. Predictability doesn't collapse. Predictability doesn't burn out. Predictability rewires identity. And identity rewires your future. So stop chasing intensity. Stop chasing excitement. Stop chasing drama. Start chasing predictability. Because predictability is the real strength.